Hello and welcome to Exploring Computer Science with Mr. Watts. Today we're going to work with the variables project, which has two parts. We'll do 1 and 2 separately. The first part deals with variables, creating variables and using those variables. Part 2 deals more with if-then questions, and we'll talk about that later. So, for starters, let's look at the requirements for the program. For part 1, we need to create a variable to keep track of a total food choice score. And at the beginning of the game, that's when the green flag is clicked, that score should be set to 0. I'm going to jump over there into a brand new project and just do that right now. I have a single sprite in this project, the cat. I think I will just use this cat to keep track of things for me. So when the green flag clicked is an event, I want to have a variable created that keeps track of my food choice. There is a variable already created called myVariable. That's not very useful. I'm going to right click it and delete it. Note that all of the orange commands went away at that point because we don't have any variables. At this point, we're going to make our variable by clicking here and give our variable a name. It's important that names be something that's useful, something that makes sense to what it's holding. So in this case, I'm going to call it my food score. You could call it whatever you like. And I will select for all sprites because there will be many sprites that will be contributing to this. This is the usual choice. Occasionally there are times when you need to use for this sprite only. We'll get to those in other videos. So when the green flag is clicked, the requirement said set the food score to 0. Is that it? I think that's it. At the beginning of the game, when the green flag is clicked, the score should be set to 0. And now the next two requirements, healthy food should change the score by a positive. Unhealthy food should change the score by a negative value. Well, we need some more food. So we're going to go to the sprite library and look for some food. We can actually limit our search to just foods. We've got plenty to choose from. Today, let's pick a fruit platter, and we'll make one more. That was a healthy choice, so let's pick an unhealthy choice, maybe some cake. And you can decide yourselves whether fruits are healthy or unhealthy, but the process will be pretty similar for both of those. So for our fruit platter, again, back to the rubric, unhealthy foods should change the score by a positive value. There's a hint there, change the score. So we'll go here, our healthy foods. We could do this when the cat touches the platter, or I think in my case, I'm just going to do it when the platter is clicked. So the event that will make this happen is when this sprite is clicked. When this sprite is clicked, we want to change the food score by some positive value. We could change it by 10, 100. I don't care what you change it by. Let's see what happens if I click the platter. Did you notice that the food score right here in the corner changed to 10? If I click it again, it'll change to 20. Had I used the set food score to 10, then anytime I clicked it, it would have taken the score back to 10. That's not very useful. I click it again, nothing happens. Make sure you know the difference between set and change. We want to be using change at this point so that every time we click it, the food score goes positive. The cake is going to have very similar code, and matter of fact, so similar that I'm going to just drag this code on top of the cake. And if you look very carefully, you can see the cake start to wobble. When the mouse is over that sprite, I'm going to go ahead and release and come over to the cake, and there is my code right there. The cake, being an unhealthy choice, should change food score by a negative value, so I'm going to put -5. Doesn't have to be the same number as the fruit. All of your foods can have different values. So now when the cake is clicked, I would expect the food score to go down, and you can see it is. It's at 25, 20. I click again, 15, 10, 9, 5, and 0, and it can even go negative. So the platter takes me higher, the cake takes me lower. Back to the rubric. You need to have at least 4 foods. We've created 2, so you'll have to create 2 more of your own. Pretty easy process, so I'm not going to do it here. And lastly, the variable needs to change as the foods are clicked, and we've got that already taken care of. You saw that the variable changed as the foods were clicked. Okay, that does it for part 1. We'll just jump right straight into part 2. Back here, scroll down so we can see. Part 2 says we need to use an if-then conditional block to add a message about being nutritious if the number of point reaches a positive limit of our choosing, and a message about eating healthier foods if the number of points is less than some negative level. All right, and then a little hint to make sure we check the points frequently. So let's go to that. I think it's best to have a neutral party deal with this question, so I'm going to ask the cat to do it. And got a couple of different options on how to do this. We go to the control commands. We've got an if-then. We've got an if-then else. If-thens, in order to use them, in order to make them useful, you have to have a true-false question in the little diamond space, and you can do that with the operators here. I'm going to pull in the greater than operator, and then on the other side of that, I'm going to drag my variable in, my food score. So now it reads, if food score greater than 50, then we want to do something. Let's do something very similar. Let's just say, good job for 2 seconds. That's a very simple way to do it. Else, what are the other options? I guess the food score could be, well, the other option is this food score is 50 or less. And so in order for that, at that point, maybe we should say eat healthy foods, just give it an encouragement message. If I plugged that in to my green flag right there and hit the green flag, the cat tells me for 2 seconds to eat healthy foods. And then if I eat healthy foods and get a whole bunch of healthy foods, notice my score is 80. The cat never said anything. Why? Because this code is no longer running. Notice there's no yellow halo around it. When I click the green flag, the score goes to 0. This code runs for 2 seconds and then it stops. So really what I need to do is, in this point, I need to ask that question over and over again, which is most easily done by putting a forever loop around it. So I sneak that in right between those 2 lines. Now when I click the green flag, it does tell me to eat healthy foods, and it checks if my food score is greater than 50. It does that over and over again. Let's try clicking this. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's still telling me to eat healthy foods because 50 is not greater than 50. We actually have to get to 60 before we get our message, good job. If you want that message to come in right at 50, you could change that number to 49. And 50 is the smallest integer greater than 49. So let's eat some cake to get down below there. It's asking us to eat healthy foods. I click the platter, it goes from 40 to 50, and it tells me good job. So we've got one message in there. How would we get the other message in there? Well, we actually have 3 ranges. Let's say we want to send a message if the food score is less than 0. So I'm going to grab another if-else block. I'm going to grab another less than. I will grab another food score just by right-clicking and duplicating that. And type if food score is less than 0, we want to say, let's go to looks again. Let's say choose better foods. And we could stick that. Where could we stick that? Actually, the place to stick that is inside of this if else, where that choice is. So if I put this down in here, then the first question that gets asked is the food score greater than 49? If it is, yes, this is what happens. But if it's not, well, let's check if it's less than 0. And that would tell us to give our second message. And then lastly, we can put the option for the middle right there. So now this should work for all cases. Let's try it. Food score of 0, it's telling me to eat healthy foods. If I start by picking a piece of cake, it tells me to choose better foods. If I eat a lot of fruit to get up above 50, then it's going to tell me great job. And we have satisfied that part of the rubric. Now this isn't a very exciting game at that point, so here comes the enhancement. If we look at, or the extension, you need to choose one of these two. Find a way of keeping a list of everything you ate, or make a game where the foods are moving and or showing and hiding so that you have limited time to catch them. Make it a little harder. Maybe the foods are falling from the ceiling. Maybe they're hiding and showing. You could make a fruit ninja game out of it. You could do a fruit basket where the cat tries to catch the fruit by moving back and forth. I'm going to leave that to you, what kind of game you want to play. And I'm not actually going to solve the problem with using lists, but I will give you a hint with lists. Lists are a kind of variable down here, and we can hit that to make a list. Give it a name like food list. And then we see a whole bunch of new commands right here on the left side of my screen. And I'll let you go through those, but it looks like you can add something to a food list. Notice my food list is on the screen here. And if I add thing to food list, oh, thing gets put in there. When would you want to add something? And what would you want to add if you were keeping track of the foods that were clicked? Delete all of foods list is a very handy command. Notice that makes it disappear. And another pair of commands that are useful are hide the food list and show the food list. So I'll give you a hint. Those are useful commands if you want to make a list that shows the foods at some point. I will leave it up to you to decide how you want to do that and to explore lists as another option. But you need to choose either the make a list of all the foods or make a game out of this. And if you look on our class studio, you may find several games that other students have made that are actually kind of fun. So enjoy coding, and I will look forward to seeing this completed project.